So you're thinking about a career in herbal therapy, huh?
It's pretty fascinating stuff, and it seems like more and more people are turning to, natural remedies these days.
Yeah.
We're diving into some material from RoleCatcher,
Okay.
a career guide that you shared with us, right?
Hmm.
To help kind of unpack what a career path in herbal therapy might actually look like.
Yeah, for sure.
Because it's definitely not just about, like, steeping chamomile tea, right?
Right.
This guide
It's way more than that.
does a good job of painting a picture of a career that blends like a deep understanding of plants
Yes.
with a really holistic view of health and well-being.
It does. It does.
It even mentions counseling techniques as
Yeah.
being a key part of an herbal therapist's toolkit.
That's interesting.
That's not something you'd necessarily expect, is
Right.
it?
Not necessarily something you would like immediately think of,
Yeah.
but it makes a lot of sense.
What does that look like in practice?
Well, I think it goes back to that idea of treating the whole person.
Yes. Not just symptoms.
Okay.
Yeah. An herbal therapist isn't just prescribing remedies.
Yeah.
They're taking the time to understand their patients' lifestyles, emotional well-being, and
Yeah.
any underlying factors that might be contributing to their health concerns.
Yeah.
Counseling techniques can just help facilitate those conversations.
Yeah.
And empower patients to, kind of make positive changes.
It's interesting that you mentioned empowering patients.
Yeah.
Because the guide really seems to emphasize that an herbal therapist needs a deep understanding of not just plants, but also human anatomy and psychology.
Absolutely.
And I think that holistic understanding is just so crucial because it allows the herbal therapist to create truly individualized treatment plans.
Okay.
They're not just pulling remedies off a shelf, you know.
They're considering the intricate interplay of systems within the body and tailoring their approach accordingly. And I think that's one of the things that really differentiates a trained herbal therapist from, say, someone who might just be recommending supplements based on general knowledge.
And that makes me think about the pros and cons that the guide laid out.
Okay.
Because it sounds like this career path offers a lot of flexibility
Right.
with the potential to, like, set your own hours.
Sure.
And maybe even work remotely.
Yeah.
But then there's the flip side, the lack of regulatory standards in some countries.
Right.
What are your thoughts on that?
It's tough.
Yeah.
It's tough because I think, on the one hand, the lack of strict regulations can be a double-edged sword, right?
Yeah.
It can make it challenging to establish credibility
Sure.
and gain professional recognition, especially when you're competing with, more established medical professions.
Especially if you're trying to build trust with clients who might be unfamiliar with herbal medicine or, skeptical of its efficacy.
Yeah, absolutely. It's about building that trust and legitimacy. But I do also think that lack of rigid oversight also allows the field to be more dynamic and responsive to new research and advancements.
Right.
It attracts people who are passionate about natural remedies,
Yeah.
who are driven to provide, personalized care outside of a conventional medical setting.
You've used RoleCatcher yourself, right?
I have, yeah.
What's your take on their career guide?
Yeah.
It seems to do a really good job of highlighting both, like, the exciting possibilities
Yeah.
and the challenges someone might encounter on this career path.
I think it offers a realistic yet optimistic perspective.
Okay.
For example, the guide delves into the different career stages of an herbal therapist,
Yeah.
Starting with assisting with consultations and, preparing remedies. And eventually, leading to developing personalized treatment plans for your own clients.
Right.
And this progression from, kind of apprentice to practitioner is clearly outlined,
Right.
which can be really helpful for someone just starting to kind of map out their journey.
It's like a roadmap,
Yeah.
giving you a sense of direction and highlighting the skills you need to develop at each stage.
Right.
They even give these example profiles, snapshots of what a day in the life of an herbal therapist might look like at different points in their careers.
Yeah, and they're interesting.
They're interesting to see those.
Yeah.
For instance, the guide mentions electronic medical records.
EMRs.
EMRs, yeah, exactly.
You wouldn't necessarily think of technology playing a big role in herbal therapy.
Right.
But
it's interesting.
it's true. You don't always picture computers and spreadsheets when you think of herbal remedies.
Right.
Is this a sign that even a field as rooted in tradition as herbal therapy is kind of evolving with the times?
Oh, absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, EMRs are becoming increasingly common in healthcare.
Right.
And herbal therapy is no exception. The guide emphasizes that being comfortable with technology, from, telehealth platforms to digital record keeping, is like essential for modern practitioners.
Yeah.
This is especially true for those interested in reaching a wider audience or, working remotely.
So we're talking about a career path that requires both ancient wisdom and modern skills, which is kind of cool when you think about it.
It is. It is.
But let's talk a bit more about the technology aspect.
Sure.
The guide also mentioned RoleCatcher's own platform and the tools it offers to job seekers.
Right.
You've had a chance to explore it, so what are your thoughts?
It's interesting,
Yeah.
to say the least. On the one hand, you have these powerful algorithms that are,
Right.
designed to optimize your resume, match your skills to potential employers, even help you, practice for interviews.
Wow.
These tools can be incredibly helpful in today's, competitive job market.
Especially for someone just starting out and feeling overwhelmed by
Exactly.
all the options and advice out there.
Yes, absolutely.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
there's always another side of the coin, isn't there?
Yes.
The guide kind of touches on this idea of AI-powered tools potentially leading to homogenization in applications.
Okay.
If everyone's using the same algorithms to craft the,
Right.
perfect resume,
Perfect resume.
there's a risk of losing that unique human element that makes you stand out.
It's like we're all trying to fit ourselves into the algorithm's idea of what's optimal
Yes.
rather than showcasing our individuality,
Exactly.
which is, I don't know, a bit concerning.
It's a valid concern, and it raises a larger question about the role of technology in career development in general.
Right.
Are these tools truly empowering us to find fulfilling work that aligns with our passions and values?
Right.
Or are they, subtly influencing our choices, steering us towards certain paths based on what the data suggests is, most likely to lead to success?
Those are some pretty deep questions.
Yeah. But let's come back to the guide for a moment.
Okay.
One thing that stood out to me was the emphasis on continuous learning.
Yes.
It's not enough to just have a good understanding of, herbs and remedies.
Right.
The guide talks about the importance of, staying up to date on the latest research, attending conferences, even seeking, mentorship from experienced practitioners.
And that's actually something I find incredibly encouraging about this field.
Okay.
It's not static.
Right.
There's always something new to learn, new research emerging,
Yeah.
new ways to apply ancient wisdom. That commitment to lifelong learning is essential for any healthcare practitioner.
Right.
But I think it's particularly important in a field like herbal therapy, where there's, so much diversity of thought and practice.
And that ties back to what we were discussing earlier about the lack of standardized regulations, doesn't it?
It does.
It's almost like the field itself encourages you to be adaptable.
To be constantly questioning and refining your approach as you gain more experience.
Precisely.
Yeah.
And that can be both exciting and daunting, right?
Right.
But it also means that there's always room for growth, for, specialization, for carving out your own niche within this expanding world of herbal medicine.
So if you were to give one piece of advice to our listener,
Okay.
someone who's clearly intrigued by herbal therapy, but maybe feeling a little overwhelmed by everything we've just discussed,
Right.
what would it be? What's the most important thing to remember as they kind of embark on this journey of exploration?
That's a great question. I think it would be this. Embrace the process.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask questions, to seek out diverse perspectives, to get your hands dirty,
Yeah.
both literally and figuratively.
Right.
The more you learn, the more you'll realize how much more there is to discover.
Right.
And that sense of wonder, that thirst for knowledge,
Yeah.
that's what will ultimately make this career path so rewarding.
That's a wonderful note to end on.
Thank you.
But before we wrap up this deep dive completely, there's one more thing I wanted to kind of touch upon from the RoleCatcher guide, something that I found particularly intriguing. They had a whole section dedicated to the fact that the herbal medicine industry is booming right now.
Yeah, it's really interesting to see.
It's not just a niche interest anymore. It's a growing market.
It's true.
Yeah.
It really speaks to that desire for more holistic health solutions
Right.
that we were talking about earlier,
Yeah. It seems like people are kind of rediscovering the power of plants and natural remedies, and that's translating into real economic opportunities.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
This growth is creating jobs, it's driving research, and it's even, influencing policy decisions. It's a really exciting time to be involved in this field.
It really is. And speaking of exciting opportunities,
Yeah.
I have to ask.
Okay.
The guide touched on this idea of an herbal therapist eventually becoming a Consultant.
Right.
Someone who's not just treating patients, but like shaping the future of the field. What does that look like to you?
It can take many forms.
Oh,
Some consultants really focus on research,
okay.
conducting clinical trials and publishing their findings to kind of validate the efficacy of herbal medicine.
Right.
Others might work with policymakers to advocate for greater integration of herbal therapy into, mainstream healthcare systems.
Okay.
And then there are those who specialize in education,
Right.
training the next generation of herbalists and sharing their knowledge with the wider community.
So it's about expanding beyond like your individual practice
Exactly.
and kind of contributing to the growth and understanding of herbal therapy as a whole.
Using your expertise to make a lasting impact on the field and to ensure its continued relevance in, a rapidly changing world.
That's incredibly inspiring.
Is.
It sounds like a career path with like almost limitless possibilities.
It really does.
But before we send our listener off to explore those possibilities, I wanted to leave them with one final thought.
Okay.
If you could design your ideal herbal therapy practice, what would it look like?
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, what kind of environment would you create for your clients? What like unique skills or passions would you bring to your work?
Those are great questions to consider.
Yeah.
And they highlight, I think, the beauty of this field.
Yeah.
There's no one-size-fits-all approach. You have the freedom to, craft a career that aligns with your values, your interests,
Yeah.
and, your vision for a healthier world.
It's about finding that sweet spot where like ancient wisdom meets modern science, where personalized care, intersects with a deep respect for the natural world.
That's beautifully said.
Oh,
And it perfectly encapsulates, the essence of herbal therapy.
This has been a fascinating deep dive, wouldn't you say?
I always learn something new when we do these.
Me too.
Yeah, yeah.
And for you, our listener, we hope this deep dive has kind of sparked your curiosity and given you a taste of what a career in herbal therapy could look like.
Yeah.
Remember, this is just the beginning of your journey, right?
Yeah.
There's a whole world of knowledge out there waiting to be discovered.
It really is. Yeah.
So embrace the learning process, trust your intuition, and don't be afraid to, carve your own path.
Yes.
The world needs more passionate individuals like you who are committed to exploring the healing power of plants.
100%.
We couldn't agree more. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into the world of herbal therapy. We can't wait to see where your journey takes you next.